to all of you, probably ladies first, Melinda. So how has digitization helped drive financial inclusion in Southeast Asia? And how has COVID accelerate that process?
I'll try first.
Yeah, Melinda first. Okay.
Okay, so I think yes, COVID definitely has accelerated the digitizations in every way, especially for I think financial industry, banking or the fintech players, because we were forced at the time to not commute, right? And we have to do everything through home or without cash handling because it might actually spread the virus. So I think during the pandemic, we have seen that the customer has significantly moved their transactions to the QR and also do the online purchase through the e-commerce and those kind of things. And so I think that's why during these times we have seen that many digital banking are start to arising with the digital onboarding because the customer acceptance over the digital and wanting for the convenience is getting higher and higher. Yeah.
Okay. Wafa, can you, how has COVID accelerated that process?
Yeah, I think the COVID-19 pandemic has made a lot of people rethink their lives, especially around physical health, but also mental wellness, but most importantly, financial wellness. I think because a lot of people lost their jobs, industries got transformed. We are seeing an entirely new generation of people, young people, that is becoming more and more aware of their physical health, mental wellness, as well as financial wellness, which is a good thing. So people are demanding more for these things. So we as companies, we have to deliver more. And that pushes us forward.
Okay. So, Derek, can you elaborate?
Yeah, I think what Hilda and Wafa already mentioned, right? Digitalization has really sped up the past 2 years. Even 3 years ago when we were trying to convince merchants to accept QR payments, right? A lot of them were hesitant because people were still doing cash, right? They were giving money here and they're saying, oh, no, it's cheaper. We don't have to pay anything, right? But with COVID, of course, people start realizing, hey, who's touched that money, right? It's like tens, hundreds of people, and it's a method of spreading germs, virus, bacteria, etc. So now it's a lot easier to talk to people and say, hey, you want to convert to digital? I mean, we have like hundreds of millions of users doing digital transactions. It saves you time from handling the cash. It saves you time from going to a bank and depositing, right? So I think it's COVID is terrible for everyone, I guess. A lot of headaches, heartaches. But if there's anything good that came out of it, I think it's the adoption of digital, and especially for Dana, I guess it's the payment side. So.
Okay, so Derek, with over 20 years of experience, you've seen drastic changes in technologies and customer behavior, right? While there is no such thing as truly future-proof technologies, there is scope for long-term planning. So with that in mind, can you walk us through some actionable long-term strategies that banks and fintech organizations can use to sustain themselves in the long run?
Yeah. If I knew the perfect answer, I'd probably be a billionaire somewhere, but I don't. But I'll try my best. So in terms of strategy, right, I think you go back to what are you trying to create and provide to your end users, whether it's the customers, whether it's the merchants, or whether it's whoever it is, right? And see if you can provide value. Because you can create a lot of products, but it doesn't create value. It's just great, it's cool, or whatever. But it doesn't add value to the life of your users, right? So first thing I think would be to come up with, is this creating value for users? And secondly, and quite importantly is, are they willing to pay for it, right? Because if nobody's willing to pay for your product, you'll end up having a solution without a problem. And nobody's going to pay for it, you're not going to be sustainable, right? So definitely ensure that you have the right product. And I think a lot of product people here, marketing, are always thinking about that first, right? When they create a product, let's do the UX properly. Let's ensure there's a need for it. There's a pain point. So that's number one. And I think, secondly, if once you have a product, make sure that you continue to review, to iterate, to see if you can make it better. Because the right product for everybody in this room today might not be the same product that you need in 5 years, right? So you need to be able to continuously adapt. And I guess the best thing is to actually listen from your customers, those who are using it and those who have actually left. Because it's important to understand why they're leaving, why your product is not serving their pain point, right? And ensure that you continue improving your product or service, and it can continue to serve their purpose moving forward. And I think probably third one I'll add, make sure that you don't underestimate your market, your competition, because a lot of great companies, right? I think within the past 20 years, I've seen, at the time, BlackBerry Messenger was just starting to come to life. Nokia was king of the smartphone market. And in 20 years, who knew they would be, they're still there, but yeah, not as big, right? So being able to look at what's going on in the market, understanding that, hey, these guys might disrupt me. These guys might have a better solution. These guys might have a solution that's probably inferior right now, but you have to continue to monitor and see if you can learn from them and improve your product and service. Yeah. So, I think just some thoughts on that.
It's continuous improvement, right? Yeah, okay. All right, Bu Hilda, talking about digital innovations in banking sectors, with digital disruptors in the mix, how can traditional finance institutions leverage customer behavioral insight to keep pace with the state disruptors?
Yeah. So I think one of the key advantage that is traditional banks have is they have stayed longer than any digital banks in Indonesia. So their data is actually richer. They have more transactional data. They already collected more data of the customer. Now is how they are going to extract it and do that into actions. So I think the possibility and the thing that traditional banks doing right now is they already understand the needs for it, but they need to actually restructure how their data is being processed and have a team that do that translation from the data to insights to actionable items. Because I think all banks are now working the way the fintech and e-commerce do. We know that fintech and e-commerce, the other players, are more advanced in the way of their extracting the data and also doing that into actions. And so this is what the banks are doing with the introduction of the chatbots. I think we already see several banks doing that. And also looking at their onboarding in Line Bank, we are looking at our onboarding journey of the customers on which is the cost, which step is customer is actually drop off. And then we analyze, is it because of the UX? Is it because of the offers? Is it because of the journey is too painful? So through that data that we collect, if we have the data for each of the steps, then we know where the customer drop off and how we can improve that. So the UI, UX can use the behavioral data and also in customizing the customer offers. Because I think the good thing about the data is that you can actually speed up the decision making. If before you are using the data and pull it out and do the analysis manually, now with the right tools, you can actually provide the customer with more timely offers and also insights. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So collecting funnels, analyzing it, and see which one is working into that data, right? So you can have that kind of execution, that having more friendly user experience with convenience, and then you can have your attractions in that.
Yes,
right?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Okay. So to Wafa. So Wafa, being the fastest startup to be valued at what, $120 million US, we're sure there were a lot of hurdles you had to get to reach at this point. On that note, being in the middle of such transforming fintech landscape, tell us about the common regulatory challenges that you help customer overcome frequently.
Yeah, sure. I think, first of all, we probably shouldn't focus too much on valuations of companies. We should focus on what value the company is providing for the market, for the customers that they serve. Because at the end of the day, the value that these companies provide will determine the valuation. But I understand that the media and the general public tend to focus on the valuation aspect because typically this is what is public, right?
Yeah.
Companies don't openly discuss their metrics, their traction in media, et cetera. So the focus tends to shift into public valuations of companies. But I would also like people to remember that valuations of companies not only represent, it does not only represent the company and the product, but also the market it's operating in. So the valuation that we have, there's also global investors' faith of Indonesian market embedded in there because they believe that the Indonesian market will grow rapidly over the next 5, 10 years. So they value the companies operating in these markets, such as Indonesia, India, to be at certain valuations. So, and at the end of the day, it represents the product that we're building, and it represents the value and the traction that we have shown to these investors. And it's not, it may seem like we've done it in such a short time, but in reality is that I spent almost 2 years working at Shopee. I spent almost 5 years working at YouTube. I spent 4 years building Modal Rakyat. And then UpBanks were started 6 months ago, yes, but all the learnings that I had from all of these different experiences contributed to the building of UpBanks. And typically people tend to see just the most recent journey and then what we have done to achieve it, but actually the journey itself started many years ago. It started 6 years ago when I graduated. It started 8, 9 years ago when I basically started working in the banking industry. In terms of regulatory challenges, I think today we're lucky to have a government that is very open-minded, I would say. You can complain a lot about what the government is doing, but at the very least, our government is very open towards new ideas, towards innovation. And regulatory can be quite challenging, but in recent years, it has become more flexible. So you can have very candid and open conversations with different government bodies. I've had very open and candid conversations with the likes of OJK, BI, Ministry of Trade, Bapepti. We've had very candid and open conversations. And generally, they're well-intentioned, and generally, they're open to new ideas. So it's up to us on how to leverage these opportunities. So I think we're lucky in that sense.
Okay, thanks you for the explanation. So let's talk about behavioral data, right? So while we understand that analyzing behavioral data is key to devising progressive strategies for FinServe, what are your thoughts on having the right insight-led analytics and engagement platform to achieve this level of data unifications? Derek, you can start.
Yeah, I think having the right, well, one, we need to have data, right? So we do have tons of it, and your question becomes relevant, right? Because if we look only a certain subset of data, we might come to the wrong conclusion and pick the wrong action. So it's super important to ensure that when you're looking at data, you're not just looking at one part of it, you're looking at the whole, I guess, journey for the customer. It depends on what you're trying to understand, right? If you're trying to understand the conversion rate, you need to have the install, register, active, whatever. But it becomes a challenge of then, I guess, filtering the correct data. Because just for example, right, when we discuss an action point or a strategy to take, we look at all these different points. And somebody might have a point of view of, hey, I'm looking at data ABC. This is my conclusion. This is what we're planning on doing, right, to address this. And then somebody just comes in and says, hang on, have you considered point Z? And of course, it becomes a whole big discussion about whether or not the insights are correct. So I think it's important for everyone to agree on some of the key metrics on what we are tracking, what we want to achieve, and also having the correct data to back it up, right? And of course, that also brings up the issue of having the right team who can analyze this data and actually recommend the correct paths of action. So it's definitely something challenging even for us, right? Because we have tons of data. But yeah, having that platform that can help summarize, give insights, and having the right team is crucial for making the right decisions.
Okay, thank you. Belinda, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think different company will have a different approach, but very important if, like Derry said, you have the data, and maybe I can add that you have to have the right tools, both to work the data into the actionable insights, and also the talent that can do that analysis. Yeah, and discussion and also customer survey is very important to validate whatever insight that we have to ensure that it is the thing that the customer wants. Yeah.
Okay. Wafa, do you have?
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
What are your thoughts on having the right insight-led analytics and engagement platform to achieve this level of data unifications? We're talking about behavioral data.
Right, sure. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, data points are used to make decisions. So what's important is for us, before we even think about data, what kind of data we want to have, what kind of platform do we want to use to gather these data points, we should know what we want to do with the data. We should know what decisions we're trying to make with the data points. So at the end of the day, we have to build some sort of a decision engine that is then being fed these data points that we have gathered from our customers, from our users, to then for us to make decisions. But you cannot rely exclusively on data points. And with whatever engine you're building, whatever platform you're building, at the end of the day, you have to use human, common sense-based decision making. Data should help you make decisions, but data should not drive you into decisions.
Yeah.
Data points can be deceiving as well, right? Depending on how you see, depending on how you cut certain data into certain patterns, different timelines, different segments, even sampling methods also have their own different types of flaws. So yes, it's important for you to build a platform that is able to generate data points for you to support your decision-making engine, for you to eventually make decisions. But decisions should be based on common sense. Decisions should be based on strategic considerations. And these data points should tell you whether you're directionally correct or not. How far should you go? Whether you should maybe take a few steps back, etc. But data should not be the sole driving factor for your decisions because it can be deceitful sometimes. And your customers at the end of the day are human, right? They're people. And they're not data points. They're not simply data points. So you have to humanize whatever data points that you're building in your platform. So I think these things are important, especially because in today's world, it's very easy to gather data. It's very easy to say that you have a big data warehouse somewhere stored that you can analyze. But the hardest part is to take these data points, humanize them, convert them into whatever insights you need to make your decisions that are right for your customers. So I guess that's where the focus should be. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I have one last question before we end up into our lunch break. So how cryptocurrencies and Web 3.0 can influence digitization and how fintech and banks can benefit? Derek, okay, or Belinda? Oh, Wafa? Okay, Wafa, can you go first?
I mean, I'll probably be biased because, I'm a huge believer in Web3. I believe eventually that all financial companies, all companies, even governments, will be on Web3. That is what I believe in. I believe in the next 5 to 10 years, Web3 will be so mainstream that people will not be talking about it at panels like this because it's so mainstream, right? You don't talk about Web 1, you don't talk about Web 2 today because it's so mainstream, because without you even realizing it, it's on your phone, it's on your internet banking apps, it's everywhere. I believe that blockchain, crypto, NFT technology will reach that level of mainstreamness that you don't even talk about it anymore, right? But because now we're such an early stage of adoption, people talk about it, people get excited about it, and when some things happen, people will say that, oh, it's a scam, it's a fad. Just remember that 20 years ago, there was a newspaper article claiming that the internet was a fad, that it was a scam, that millions of people are turning away from it, and the internet will not take off. This was just only 20 years ago, and now same thing is happening in Web3. I believe Web3 will take over the world. It will change how companies are run. It will change how people live their lives. It will change how governments are run. And for fintech companies, this is an amazing opportunity to look into what Web3 can offer to the traditional financial industry. Now forget about the $1 million monkey JPEGs that people are selling right now, but you have to look at the underlying technology powering it, right? The blockchain infrastructure powering it, how it enables transparency, how it enables cheap fees, how it enables fast transactions, how it enables anonymity. These things are what customers want, and these things play into our human nature. And if you play this technology right, it can transform the way your company does things. Even today, we have tried with some small experiments, right? I mean, my other company, VC Gamers, is a full-blown Web3 company. But UpBanks, we have tried some small experiments with Web3 as well, such as how we can start financing Web3 projects, for example. How do you even look at credit risks in Web3 projects, for example? For companies, it's clear, right? You analyze the cash flow statements, you analyze their balance sheet, you analyze their income statement, you analyze their business plan. But how do you analyze the credit risk of a Web3 project? And how do you even try to lend to them? How do you even give them credit? So these things are new. These things are very, very innovative. But eventually, I think everyone will move towards that direction. So it's important for us in this industry to try to learn as early as possible and try to get as much exposure as possible during this early adoption period. Yeah.
Right, great. Okay, Belinda, might you want to add it more banking stuff?
I think for banks, specifically for Line Bank, we are very keen to see how the cryptocurrency and this Web3 will actually evolve in Indonesia, because as banks, we need to definitely see whether it actually fits what our customer needs and how the regulations will actually fit into that. So yes, and I believe that the blockchain technology, as we all know, is actually something that worth to consider, because I think that will actually become a game changer later on. So and in Line Bank, our major shareholder, the Hana Financial, is actually already entering the metaverse in Korea. So yes, we are still looking both with the regulation and everything, but we really do not close any doors for that opportunity as long as that's what the customer wants. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, last answer, Mr. Derek.
From Dana's perspective, I guess we are looking at partnering with a lot of different players in the ecosystem, right? Because our position is to become a wallet serving your digital financial lifestyle. So when you're talking about, for example, in this case, crypto, NFTs, part of Web3, right? Hey, those are your assets. You're supposed to be able to store them somewhere, right? And in our case, for Dana's perspective, why not in Dana, right? You should be able to store it. It's just an asset. Now, in terms of whether or not I believe that this will be something that is a game changer, I'm more of a wait and see. So let me ask everybody in the audience, how many of you have, Ethereum or blockchain or NFTs? Can you just raise your hands? Not even a quarter of the room, right? So definitely people are looking at it and seeing, hey, should I jump into this? What is this thing, right? We, as fintechs and banks and digital ecosystems, have I think also the mission to actually help financial literacy, not just include everyone, hey, let's jump into this, buy this, sell that, right? But also educate people on potential benefits. Do I see value in the underlying technologies? Yes. Blockchain, distributed ledgers, being able to transfer money efficiently, more efficiently. Because right now, to be honest, it's still super expensive, even on the blockchain network, right? There's still a lot of inefficiencies. But does it have a future? I do believe so. Is it in the current form? I don't know whether cryptocurrencies will all survive or have one left. NFTs, does it have value? Some of them does, right? You want to be an artist in digital format, you have royalties, etc., that can be tracked on a blockchain. Sure, it has value, right? But are there a lot of scams? Sure.
Yeah.
You get rug pulled by NFT projects. I got scammed the first time I tried to buy an NFT. And I never thought that, me as part of a technology company would fall for something like that, and I did. Because it's a new thing, right?
Yes.
So there's always new technologies coming up. I see the potential, but is it going to be in its current form, NFTs, cryptocurrencies? I don't know yet. We're still evaluating, we're still taking a look and trying to understand. But one thing from, I think, the digital ecosystem perspective, it's important to also talk about helping people understand literacy, not just including everyone into the ecosystem and say, oh, everybody's in the financial ecosystem. Well, do they know what they're doing? Do they know what they're doing with their life, etc.? So I think there's potential, definitely. We're looking at partnering up with all the players in the Web3 blockchain industry. But will it continue to evolve? I think there's still more evolutions before it changes the world. So that's my point of view.